Is it essential to have a PhD in creative writing if you already hold an MA or MFA?
The simple answer is no. You do not have to. That's the truth. So it also depends on your path and your goal. Typically, employers ask for either MFA or PhD. In creative writing, the MFA is considered a terminal degree. But the PhD is also special in the sense that it's more academic if you want to teach, and that will give you a slight advantage. But basically, if you are going to come with an MFA to the job market, you have to have publications to show for it, in addition to your MFA. If you don't have publications yet, doing a PhD is an opportunity for you to build your portfolio. As you study the PhD, you can send stuff out and publish. It's just time, 3, 4, 5 years for you to be able to do some of the things you want to do as a writer as well. Yeah.
Okay, but I have a follow-up question. By publications, do you mean a book, or do only publications in literary journals count?
Yes, publications in literary journals do count. But depending on the kind of job you are looking for, you might have to eventually have a book. But publication in literary journals are very, very important.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that. I totally agree with what Samuel has said about the MFA being a terminal degree, but most jobs would require you to have either an MFA or a PhD. But what's happening in the market now is that most of the times they prefer those who have PhDs. And so it's always preferable to get a PhD, especially when you do not have a book published. Literary journal publication do count, and really there are people who have not published books who have published in journals, and even there are people I know, some of my friends who have not published in any journal but have gotten tenure track jobs because of MFA. So we really cannot tell, what whoever is interviewing you would really require, but a PhD is at least a very big advantage because you can teach literature courses as well as creative writing courses. So you're almost like 2 in 1. And they really prefer that more than being able to just teach only creative writing courses.
Thank you. So add a follow-up question and then, have any other panelists jump in. I was wondering, would you advise someone who just graduated with an MFA to go into the job market, or would you advise them to channel all their energy into getting into PhD programs, publishing their books? Job hunting is a full-time job. So I'm wondering how you would advise someone who just graduated with an MFA to proceed, or someone who's about to graduate. Where should they channel all their energies if they have limited time?
Yes, I could speak. I think it depends on the kind of job. But if it's a teaching job, a book is often required. I mean, I look at the job ads and they often must have publication. Recently, they began to add must have a PhD as well. I've seen a few that have like the PhD requirement, even separate from the university. So if it's a teaching job, I think if you don't have a book, maybe take more time, apply to PhD programs, because like Samuel said, it's basically more time. That's all it is.
Thank you.
Yeah, I totally agree. If you have an MFA and you have a book on that contract, by all means, apply for jobs. That was actually what I did some years after I finished my MFA. I already had a book on that contract, and then I got a couple of jobs. But again, it depends on, I don't want to assume that the fact that you are in creative writing and you are doing MFA and PhD in creative writing, you have to teach. There are other paths for you to go. You can work in publishing. I have a couple of friends who went into advertising immediately after the PhD. In fact, advertisers are looking for creative writers in America right now. And I've been on both sides. Oh, by the way, that reminds me, for all the fiction writers here, that Penn State is going to be hiring soon. We are hiring a fiction writer. So if you are qualified.
Well,
Send something to us. When the search committee, when we were talking about how we're going to hire and all of that, there was a debate because we are hiring a visiting assistant professor 3 years. Now, so there was this debate. Should the person have a book or not? And so many universities have done so many things. Some require you to have a strong history of publications, but they don't actually require you to have a book. Most of them say you have to have a book or at least a book on contract. But we decided at the end of the day that you have to have a book or a book on contract. So it is, and the job market in the US for teaching creative writing is very tough. Let me just be very frank with you. It's very tough. Like I said, the PhD route is like that gives you time to be able to build your, depending on how focused you are about it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So I'd like for English Lit specialists to also jump in. What's it like in the job market? I know so in the past, people who had just MAs could get jobs, but what is it like for people who are in the English in literature program? I'm wondering, what is it like? How easy is it to get a job? Do you need to have a book or do you just need publications? So I'm going to call on our expert, Chijioke.
I think for the literature part, it's very different from conversation that is already going on within the panel. The minimum requirement is a PhD. You must have a PhD. That means you must about to finish and have the PhD before you start the job. So you must not have a book here because our book is different. It's a critical monograph that takes sometimes even up to like 6 more years after a PhD to write. So, but it is people with PhD are not even getting jobs yet. So there is no way people that have masters to get the job. The PhD is a minimum requirement in this case.
Yeah. Another question people usually have is if it's advisable to jump from an MFA. I don't want to use the word advisable, but there are people who think, well, maybe English literature is the same as the creative writing program. If I got a PhD in core English and I also want Samuel to come in here, would it give me an advantage, or should I be looking for only a PhD in creative writing and literature? Because of course, those programs are usually joint. What would you advise? Would you say, well, go for a joint creative writing English PhD to give you an advantage? Or would you say you can also just get a PhD in core English literature? I know it's a conversation we've had, Chijioke, but I'd like to hear what you have to say.
Okay, I think Samuel will soon provide his, the way I look, my problem with advice overall is that it seems to take away the different peculiarities for each person, right? So it's hard for us to give advice that is applicable to everyone. For example, if you are someone like me that has a background in criticism or in English, and maybe you did your MFA, but you still love the English criticism side of it, you might see yourself as someone who can kind of have a profile that can combine both of them. I know a few names that have done that, say, even at Cornell, where I am, Bukoma, for example. There is this other person that did PhD at Syracuse University and is a professor somewhere now, I think in Denver. And I know also someone that did MFA in poetry and doing PhD now. But these are people that already had background in criticism and they're doing both. They're actually doing both somehow. So it depends on what you want to achieve. But once you put your leg in the PhD criticism, you are no longer going to see yourself as like a creative writing specialist proper.
Mhm.
You're more of like because the market is hard, just like the story of the tortoise. You are one leg here, one leg there. Anyone that falls that comes say you take. That will be the best way to describe it. But even your job, like I think it's Jen that just mentioned it, because like the market is hard. Universities, they just run them like operations now. How can you get one person that can do 10 jobs? So they can see other person that can teach creative fiction workshop or poetry workshop, as well as into African literature or advanced African literature classes. So in that way, you can present yourself in that order. But otherwise, they are not the same thing. Just that one is very clear. They are not the same thing. In fact, as Choma might know, this might be controversial, but my fear is that someone who decided as a creative writer, the language of criticism belongs to your creative writing language.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
So it's complicated. It's not straightforward. For example, you are right. They do ask for that you have an edge. In addition to being a creative writer, you are into maybe queer studies or Afrofuturism or African speculative fiction. There's always, if you have other interesting areas of study and the intersections, they love intersections here and all of that. That's great. But what I tell people is this. In academia, employers always look for specialists. For example, I'm a fiction specialist at Penn State. Even though I also have a position in the African Studies department because of the things I write about African and I do African speculative fiction. I've never taught a single class in African studies. Practically, when you're here in the creative writing program, I'm so occupied by creative writing that you don't have time to teach any course in African studies, even though I'm allowed to teach courses in African studies. That has not happened yet. There is also this kind of reality in English departments. For people who are in it, you understand what I'm talking about. Often like people crossing over and encroaching into department and teaching other people's courses. So there's a lot of fights and wrangling here about that. But however, having said all of that, I think the major thing for me is that if you do an MFA in fiction, for example, and you end up doing a PhD in literary studies, the PhD program is a big commitment for 5 years. They give you funding for 5 years. And you spend 5 years going into you really go into it. Do you think you won't lose your creative writing chops? Or can you kind of maintain your literary studies brain and your creative writing brain at the same time? So if you can do that, by all means, but if you can't, that's for me the main problem. And you see, for example, if you did a PhD in creative writing, you would workshop stories that you can later send out and publish. You can't do that with a literary studies PhD because you'll be doing criticism and all those. Okay, yeah, that's it.
Thank you so very much. That was very helpful. And I'm sure it will be helpful to more writers down the line. Ella, do you have more questions? Or do any of our panelists want to come in?
No,
Do you want to come in, Jane? Oh, Kasima, do you have thoughts?
I was going to say, I'm in a program that we have critical and creative writer people who take classes together. I mean, if you're in a program like that, possibly, because some of them take workshops with us because they're also creative writers. But yeah, I agree, no way you can be doing a PhD in lit and also keep writing. It's just, it's
Can
hard.
I tell us what the name of your program is? Because some of us are wondering too.
University of Southern California.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Cool. All right. Next, a question, except customer wants to jump into. Ella, what other questions do you have on the list?
Okay, going by what they mentioned about PhD program being a big commitment, one of the questions is, what workload and expectations should applicants expect before they begin to apply for a PhD program?
Let's hear from those who are doing it first.
I think all I have is girl.
Sure. Oh my God.
Okay, I'll elaborate. It's just, I mean, a program that we have it's a dual program, so we're expected to do literature as well as creative writing. And yeah, like I have to use two sides of my brain at every point. And that's very tasking. Yeah, because I'm taking literature classes as well as workshop and to write and critique as well as do literature, it's hard. I don't know how other programs are, but yeah, they expect us to be scholars, not just writers. Unlike MFA, where you're just probably there writing and you're being encouraged to write, the PhD doesn't pay too much attention, at least my program, to your writing, but more attention to making you a scholar. So yeah. All my classes basically assign a full book every week. So if you're taking 3 classes, that's 3 books every week that you have to read for the next class. And for some classes, the mid-term, we have to write a 10-page paper, and by the end, write 20 to 30 pages per class, right? So it's hard.
So should I talk about my own experience, or want to go around?
Yeah.
Kasima, do you have something to say?
After you, Samuel.
Kilo day. Okay, yeah, like I said, it's a commitment. The thing about PhD is the rigor of it, the rigor. I remember my PhD, like you said, a course will have like 8 books or 9 books, and you have to write. There's a lot of, the critical aspect of it is a big part of it. Like Jane said, they expect you to be scholars as well. So you are combining both, and you are doing all these courses, Old English, history of English, the Old English course. Oh my God. Did you do it? Are you doing this now? Okay. And then also, you have to learn a language. You have to learn a language that you didn't learn before. So there's what is called a language requirement. Me, I just put Yoruba there, so I got out of it that way. So that's the trick for Nigerians. Just put your native language. They'll find a way of testing you, and then you test out of it. Yeah. But I remember when I did my comprehensive exam, which was, how many of you Jane, have you done comprehensive yet? Oh, wow. So let me tell you how the comprehensive exam was. It was the most difficult thing I had ever done in my life. And I've done a lot of difficult things. I was given a list of 250 books to read and study. You kind of have to prepare for like 2 years. Make sure you prepare ahead of time. And, imagine reading 250 books, a lot of literary criticism, a lot of 19th century, 18th century literature, and all of that. For my program, it was a written exam, 6 hours per paper. So you sit there after 2 years of studying 250 books, you sit down to write an exam in 6 hours. And then 4 will examine your work. And if one fails you, they're done. I'm not saying this to scare you guys. We are Nigerians, we are okay. You don't have any problem. There's a lot of commitment to make you a better writer. In the case of creative writing, to make you a better thinker, to make you a better scholar, make you a better teacher. So it was worth it, at least for me. Yeah.
Yeah, I have no regret.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great.
Sam, I think the name of your program, and then we'll go to Kasima.
Georgia State.
Georgia State, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, for those who are compiling their list, you can decide if that school will go into your list.
All the same. They just have like slightly different ways of administering their comprehensive exam. I know some people do like essays over a couple of weeks or so. Georgia State, we do exams. Like you sit down in front of the computer with no notes, nothing. Brutal, very brutal, man. Jesus.
Yeah, thank you. Kasima.
So I totally agree with what Samuel and Jane. I am getting a PhD in English and creative writing right now, and it's almost like you have to do both. You have to study critical theories and at the same time write. And just as Jane said, the program is not really invested in your writing. Yeah, it's really invested in turning you into a scholar. If you want to really, really work on your writing, that's for MFA. But once you get into the PhD, you're doing critical work. You're studying books and reviewing it as a literary scholar, not a creative writer. And It's such a tedious program to be in. MFA was basically, I mean, writing is something I know. You just go there, write, they talk about your story, you go home. So about the only thing that might say is difficult about MFA is that somebody might give you the workshops where people might give you comments you're not really comfortable with, but that has never faced me. I really don't care.
Yeah.
It's your opinion and you're not forced to take it in an MFA program, which is good. You can take it or leave it. It's you that know where your writing wants to go. But when it comes to scholarly work and scholarly response, you cannot just tell your professor, I'm not going to take feedback, even if you know where your work wants to go. At least in this school, which is University of Utah, you are expected to learn from the professor and understand what the professor is trying to teach you. Because you're a writer, you find yourself sort of struggling with literary criticism and being on the other side. It's as if you're just on another side. And then about reading, I also agree. I'm taking a course now where we have to read 12 books, and that's one course. This is 12 books in addition to essays, because you read the book and then read critical essays with it alongside the book. You also read creative essays about that book, critical essays about that book. So you have so many readings, and this just for one course. And then you're teaching. So you have students, you have to grade, you have so many students, you have to read their assignments, give them good feedback. You have to prepare for your classes, read what you have to teach, go and teach. If you're teaching a book, you have to read that book you're going to teach. And you have to take a minimum of 9 credits if you want to maintain your scholarship, which is 3 courses. Some of them can be thesis hours, depending on how many courses you've taken. So it's like a tedious program. And about comprehensive exam, I've not gotten there, but yeah, I heard it's something else entirely. But I thank God I didn't go to Georgia State University.
Don't worry, you will meet your own.
I ran away from Georgia to go there, but I don't think ours is as difficult. But I don't think the way Samuel has described this one, I don't know.
It's not that bad. It's not that bad. The good thing is that there are people who they also know. So one of my colleagues here who were talking about the PhD, and she said that the comprehensive exam is academic hazing. It started post World War II. They were trying to do something and then develop from there and all of that. I think you should be able to get enough support to get through. It's not as if they're looking to fail you in that sense. So don't worry. You'll be fine.
I mean, ideally, they're not looking to fail you. That's the church.
And you see,
Like, smart are looking to fail you.
Kasima, you mentioned something that I almost forgot, which is the teaching aspect. I did 2 courses in the spring and 1 in the fall. So I had a 2-1 load. So in addition to all of that, you have to teach, grade, and do office hours with your students. So all those things. So it's quite something.
Sanitary studies experts, and what's the load like? What should people expect prior to coming?
I think I've just been listening to all the discussion about comprehensive exam because I just finished my own a year and 2 months ago, and I can tell you that I'm still recovering from the process. I and Choma were in the same basically neighbors. Like I haven't been able to do anything else. In fact, I'm starting therapy next week. I like the idea of academic hazing because that is exactly how it feels. The whole idea of like, Jen made an interesting. He said, ideally, people are not looking to fail you, but for some of them, it's also a place to settle scores. You just can't determine what is going to happen and how it is going to happen. I think I have gone through many tough things. Cornell is literally my 3rd master's. For anybody that knows me, that says a lot about it. So the workload is quite something. At minimum, let's just say that PhD is a full-time job. Let's put it like that. It's a hectic full-time job. That's the way I would describe it. At the end of the day, whether it is worth it, I don't know. I think I have been more productive without the comprehensive exam. Probably must have learned more without, at least the way it is being organized.
Yeah.
The hazing aspect of it, the way it's being organized. it's not something I would think it has been so fruitful to me personally. But it's what it is. You have to do it, and I have done it, whatever the recovery time goes. Then the second thing to say is, let's just put it this way. The way I approach the PhD more often than not is that besides all this going about how hard it is, you can gauge yourself. You can take your time. Apart from the coursework that's still very regimented, you determine what you want to do. When I talk about taking the 1 year off, I seriously mean it, because that's 1 year I was on fellowship. There was no one that is asking you like, why haven't you done this? My advisor is following up to be like, hey, you have to start writing. What about chapter 1? What about chapter 2? So sometimes the PhD can actually allow you to buy time. You are funded to do what you want to do, especially if you can get into the more creative writing part of things. For the PhD itself, if you are in the critical side, the bad news is still that the PhD is the basic minimum to even apply for a job. The hard thing is what you need to do alongside the PhD. You already can see how the PhD is hard. How many papers do you need to publish?
Yeah.
How many conferences do you need to attend? How many panels do you need to organize? How many books do you need to review? What kind of profile do you need to build? Personally, for me, those have been the harder parts of the PhD process. And they have actually delayed kind of progress I could make, as when I could just like focus on the PhD alone. So that's an aspect that doesn't get said enough, because we just come out with the PhD alone and, hey, my name is Chijoke, I have a PhD, and then your CV is blank. You will likely just go back to say hi to Tinubu.
Yeah, someone said when I graduated doing the hooding ceremony, the president said that only 2 to 3% of the world's population have PhDs, and there's a reason for that. Another thing we don't get to talk about is people don't talk about. We don't talk about enough is the fact that being a PhD student as an immigrant. Oh my God, I can go on about it all day. Because when you're an immigrant, you basically have no support system.
Yes.
In most cases, your family is not there. The people is not there. All those Oyinbo people, you don't even understand them. And then you are trying to find your community and everything. So there's also that going alongside you going through the rigors of the program and everything. So I think it's kind of a unique situation for people like us and all of that. Yeah.
Thank you, guys. I have a follow-up question, particularly for the creative writing folk, especially for someone who's going to be on the hiring committee or on a hiring committee. I've heard that the fellowship is the equivalent of a postdoc in the realm of creative writing. So I was wondering how people have fared with those fellowships or those extra, well, they're academic programs, but in a league of their own. Like, how have those people fared in the job market? And do you think that's an alternative route when compared to the PhD? I'm just wondering.
So you mean a stagnant fellow applies
Yeah.
for the job market?
Yes, when compared to like maybe they had a book or they had like a book contract, because most techno fellows do. And somebody else has like an MFA and a PhD and also a book contract.
Mhm.
Would they be ranked on the same rating or scale?
It depends. I don't think stagnant has anything to do with your strength as a writer or your ability to teach. Because one of the things a lot of people don't realize is that even though writing forms a huge part, it gives you an advantage and all of that, we are hiring someone to teach.
Okay.
Like, then don't ever forget that. So that teaching experience is also good for you. And having a PhD gets you the teaching experience. Maybe someone invited you to teach a virtual workshop somewhere, or you teach something somewhere, all those things, put it in your CV. Because we're looking for people with teaching experience in addition to their writing chops. In fact, I'm really aware of the kind of classism that exists in this country.
Yeah.
And the idea of the Ivy League, and I also know that the best, most talented writers don't have Ivy League education. Most Ivy League schools don't have good writing programs in the first place. So that is not what I'm looking for. as someone on the search committee. I'm looking for good writing. I'm looking for someone who is doing something fresh and exciting. The problem with a lot of legacy creative writing programs is that they all write the same way.
Mm.
And you see, because they have been trained to write the same way,
Mm.
aesthetically, they are all like the same. So I'm looking for someone bringing something fresh and unique into the system. So it doesn't matter whether you go to Stanford or all those fellowships, even though I myself have gotten a lot of those prestigious fellowships before. But it's just about what you are good at and your uniqueness and what you bring to the table. That's the most important thing to me.
Thank you.
I can jump in here very quickly. One other way to look at this is from the bureaucratic point of view, right? So you are working as a part of a system within the US or global academic system entirely. The swearing in process to even be part of this course is a PhD.
Mm.
The MFA is an anomaly within that system. It's an accepted anomaly, just like G. But think about what happens when your case reaches the dean who has never heard about the MFA before. When it reaches to the provost, when it reaches the university senate, right? So I am very skeptical again for your own self-worth and the long run. It may not matter, it may matter once in a while, right? If I don't think there might be a different kind of value that Stegner brings, but it cannot be a replacement to the PhD.
Mm.
So thinking about them as equivalents will be problematic. Place where even the PhD is from University of Ndufo Alike in but it is a PhD. When it is that on your the terminal degree, like that bureaucratic system you are dealing with, I think it might stand out in a way that Stegner might not be able to replace you in some things. I still know the places where like you are going to become a provost of a college, and eventually remember that you don't have a PhD. If you can do both, if you want to have both, fine. If you want to have one, don't think of them as equivalent. Is what I mean.
Okay. Okay.
Can
Thank
I
you.
jump in very quickly?
Yes, please.
To add so before I forget, Chijoke made a very, very important point, as well as Samuel, about getting a PhD and getting a fellowship at the same time, and about what the hiring committee is really looking out for. What Chijoke said about advancing is really, really important, because the dean of the graduate school here was telling me of how a guy, so I think he's a scientist, and they work in, I don't know where they work, but this guy could tell you what is in the book, the page number. He could quote all those things. He was so good at the job, but because he didn't have a PhD, somebody else with a PhD was hired when they needed a vice president, even if he had been working there. So I don't know how it is in English academia, but I sort of fear that you might getting having an MFA would get you straight into assistant professor. And then you can proceed when you publish to get associate professor and then become a full professor in your own right. But I don't know about administrative jobs in the university.
Yeah.
If you can, if without a PhD, whether you can get those jobs. But if you just really want to teach, I think an MFA is okay. And another thing I really also want to point out is you're an immigrant. You're really not an American. And that's very important to keep in mind. Because in this country, there is the law that they cannot give a job to an immigrant that an American can do. And I don't have any beef about that law, but that means you really have to work really hard in order to prove that they should take you over an American. So if an American has an MFA, which is a terminal degree, and then you come with an MFA, I don't really see anywhere they should take you over. But if an American has an MFA and then you have a PhD, then you have Stegner, you have publications, definitely there is a case to be made. They should take you over the person who is an American. And so these are the things that immigrants consider, the things you really need to work way harder than others to show that you're worth it, that you deserve to have this, as well as others. That's why we sort of go into getting a PhD, not because we are not good writers or because our MFA is not enough. And another thing someone said I wanted to add to is about the MFA, sort of tweaking your writing to sound the same way and while being unique is very important. is really true, but it's also difficult to have your own voice in a world where everybody's saying the same thing, sounding the same way, and then you try to deviate from that is really, really difficult as a writer to raise your head above the water. Even if, thank God, he's saying it, he's part of a hiring committee, it's really encouraging to hear. But the fact that an MFA sort of tweaks your voice to sound the same way in everybody's writing is really true. And it takes a lot of self-determination to know your voice and know what you want to write, to say, no, this is what I want to write. Thank you for your comments, but no, I'm going to give it.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. I know that in Jane's school, that some people have come from Stagna to do the PhD. So I think that sort of says a lot about the value of a PhD. I'm wondering if Jane has spoken to one of those or two of those people, and if she wants to just add on to what's already been said.
Yeah, it's a very common path to have people come from Stegna to USC. One of them, he even has a book coming out, but because he wants to teach creative writing, he decided to do the PhD. So even though he has a book well published, he still needs the PhD in order to be able to teach. Then the other one that happened is someone that came from Stegna, but she had big publications as well, had about 2 books, I think. And she got a job. So she left. But she had an MFA. So I think it's just everyone's path is different, I feel like.
Yeah.
Really that whatever you can do, just do add to your CV because you just don't know what path you're going to end up on.
Also, Stagnite, the people I know that have been there, it kind of gives you 2 years to finish a book, to write and finish a book. Anything that makes you finish a book is always good, any program at all. In fact, I advise MFA students to use that opportunity to finish a book. During my MFA, I wrote 2 books. And each time I would bring a chapter or 2, 3 chapters of my work to workshop. And then always, I did not write anything that I was not willing to use. That was my rule. If I'm going to write this, I'm going to use it. And I'm also contributing to the community. So it's a give and take thing. Programs like that. My own is that the only thing very I just worry about also called programs that tend to be like a pipeline to New York publishing.
Mhm.
And how problematic that can be sometimes. So I'm all for dismantling that entire system because people should just, there are so many things involved. Some of you understand what I'm saying.
As a critic, we enjoy causing problems for writers. In the critical angle that African literature died the day that MFA was discovered.
Well, I don't know about that.
MFA has made wars of African literature.
Well,
Most of our writers.
yes, I do agree.
They thought we were killed. You know, they want to holler, which is why I made it. Why I made it. The teaser on why that MFA is going to make you a bigger writer or whatever. There is an argument for how MFA can actually kill your voice.
Yeah.
That's where I'm getting to.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Thank you so much, guys. I'm grateful. Ella, do we have more questions or do we move on to the ones in the comments?
There's just one more question. Since we're all talking about different PhD programs and all of that, what factors or what should we consider when we want to make a choice for a PhD program?
Interesting.
I think I'm going to invite
Did you get my
Taga
question?
to read his question. Is Taga still here?
Hello, everybody.
Hi.
Yeah, I'm happy to be in this space with you all. I'd like to know about your experiences in your respective programs because I'm currently in an MFA program in my 3rd year and I'm looking forward to applying, all things being equal. And I've learned a lot so far. Thank you.
Someone wants to jump in?
Well, I'm at the University of Utah and studying English and creative writing after my MFA at the University of Kentucky. So it's almost like one part of the country to the other. When I told my folks at Kentucky that I got into Utah, everybody was basically, don't go there. It's too far away. It's desert. It's blah, blah, blah. But honestly speaking, I just went with the money. Utah gave me the biggest money and I followed them. I didn't look back. I didn't care to know if there were few Black people. I did not check all those things. And another thing that made me choose Utah is because the comprehensive exam and the qualifying exams and the thesis you're supposed to write, in Utah, you would write just a creative thesis, which is a novel. In some other schools that I considered, you would write both a creative thesis and a literary analysis or something like that. So you're writing both. And that's what a PhD prepares you to, how to critique work and how to write. And you're expected to produce 2 theses on those. So your comprehensive exam would be on both, but your final thesis would be just a novel. And that was just what I wanted. I did not want to write critical theory or all those literary criticisms as thesis. I think it was going to be too much. So that was what I considered. And also while I was applying, truth be told, I considered the application fee. So schools that had very expensive application fee, I sort of avoided. I just needed to get into a PhD program. And if your application fee is too expensive and you're not giving me a waiver, then I'm not going to apply. Also, I considered health insurance. Schools that gave partial health insurance, I avoided those schools because it's quite expensive to survive on a student stipend. And so I don't want to have to pay health insurance on top of them.
Yeah.
And also, another thing I considered, apart from health insurance, is how expensive it is to live in that city. This is the least thing I considered, honestly, because when you're looking at the money that they're paying you, sometimes some schools pay higher because the cost of living in that city is very high. Like USC now, Jay would be in a better position to speak about it. But I know that living in California is so expensive. And so if they're paying her more than they're paying anybody else, it's because the cost of living there would take almost half of what she's already getting as stipend. So these are the things I considered. But what made me choose the school is because of the thesis I had to write. The fact that I didn't have to write a critical thesis. That was why I came here. And for your second question, I think maybe I should just wait until trauma maybe sort of leads us to that place so that I don't sort of...
No, please proceed and answer because I went to that.
Okay, if you say so. About the publishing component of my program. Tega, can you say more about that? I'm not really sure I understand.
So I've heard a couple of times that Utah has this very great publishing component. Well, like just the way some programs focus on the writing, Utah has like this focus on publishing. So if you want to really go into the editorial world, and you want to go to the PhD, you could do like a PhD in creative writing, but then the focus can also be in publishing.
I'm honestly not sure about that. I don't know if I've heard about that, about focusing on, I don't even know if we have editing courses here. If you have not heard it, but they bring in publishers to talk to us about going into publishing and things like that. But they don't teach it as a course. But they encourage it, but they don't teach it.
Okay, thank you so much.
Can I?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, Jen, go ahead.
You can go ahead.
Go ahead.
For me, I did a 3-year MFA, and I had a 2-2 load. And it was hard for me for those 3 years, and while also writing. So going into the PhD, I really wanted to get into USC because you don't teach the first 2 years while you're doing your coursework, and I needed the rest. So that was a big factor to me. So going in, I already knew that USC was my number one. Like if I got the yes, that was it. And the other thing I was interested in, they also have a dual program, which I mentioned. And I didn't want to go straight just to a PhD in creative writing. That was just workshop and craft classes. I wanted to do the critical side of things. So that was the second reason I chose USC. And the money, it does... I mean, we gotten a raise as well, but yes, like LA is so expensive, but some things are relatively the same price as they are in other states. So after I did like the math, I saw that I'll be able to live off the money and like have some left. So that was a big decision for me. There was another school I got into that the cost of living was low, But when I checked, like, what my expenses would look like that money was going to be 100% done by the end of the month, right? So sometimes, yeah, the cost of living of the place can be expensive. But if there are things that are relatively the same price across the country, it can also make that money go a long way. I don't know if I'm making sense, but anyway, that's why I ended up at USC. The teaching was number one for me, and then money, dual program.
Yeah, well, all the things that you've all said, especially Kasima, you said all the things I wanted to say. Also, for example, in my case, even though Georgia State is a very good program, one of the best in the country, the pay is not good, especially because Georgia State is right in the heart of Atlanta, and Atlanta is very expensive. So that was a challenge for me. In fact, I remember when I was negotiating, they really wanted me in that program. So when I got a call from the head of department, I said, no, I can't take that money. Go and give me more money. So they went back. They added $5,000 to it. And then after a while, I said, no, this money is still not enough. Go back. She added another 5,000. Even that's still not enough. I had to room with two guys. I was paying like $700 because I needed to reduce my rent to $700. So I got a room for like $700 and we were sharing, three of us. It was like a duplex, 5 minutes away from campus. Another thing is that you have to consider things like transportation, where you are going to live, how you are going to get there. So I would take the school bus right to campus, and it was easy for me. And all of that. Health insurance is very important. If you come from Nigeria, you won't understand how important health insurance is in America and how that can really, if you work so hard, a time is going to come when your body is going to break down. That's the truth. And then when something happens to your body, you have to go to the hospital. And then they tell you out of pocket, you have to pay like $500. And you are even managing $300 per month to buy groceries, then how will you pay $500 for out of pocket if the insurance is not good? And most of these student insurance are not that really good. Let's be very clear. So all these things, you have to work around all these things. Another thing that is also important is you need to be able to find out how flexible they are in that program. For example, there are programs that do not entertain or accept speculative fiction. So if you know that you are a writer of speculative fiction, and doing experimental things and everything, and you go to a program where they are very traditional in their approach, you are going to have trouble. Well, you might adjust and all of that, but it's going to kind of brittle and muffle your, however you want to express yourself in your writing. So one of the things I asked, because they are going to give you a phone call, one of the things I asked the head department, I write speculative fiction, right? Is this something you are? I said, yes, we do accept. We are this, we are that. What if you want to take more poetry courses, for example? You are like dual genre and you want to take more poetry courses, and would they allow that? Would they allow you to do nonfiction also? Would they allow you to do a project, dissertation, right? So all those things are questions that you need to ask so that it can be clear that this is what they're about before you make a decision. Thank you.
For the PhD in literary criticism, but it's very similar in terms of this conversation, but also like a bit different. You don't have it's not like creative writers where you probably have one innate, powerful, God-gifted talent that you can shine from almost everywhere. In criticism, it's often not the case. There is always some connection between where you do your PhD and how you are perceived in the outside world for job in academia. So in that regard, I will say that your aim should be to get into the best program in your field. So if you are doing English literature, the best is maybe arguably Yale or Harvard. Then you start coming down. I didn't know this because my master's was in Germany. I didn't really understand the US system before coming in. If I knew it, I think I would have even aimed higher than Cornell. when I was applying. Because that is how it works out even on the job market. People from Yale are almost, again, the market is very bad, but they are almost even guaranteed jobs. So the politics of classism and all of those really plays very well into academia. Let's put this another way, which is what I think Jen has been talking about sometimes, which is also that the higher the school is ranked, the likelihood that they have more resources for you. Like Jen talked about having 2 years of no teaching. It looks like it's easy, but it's actually not very common to have 2 years of no teaching. And those years of no teaching means you have more time to work. Compare that to like a place where maybe you're teaching 2-2 or 2-1. So I'm saying this because at Yale English, for example, yeah, I think your first 2 years is fellowship entirely in English. As Cornell, we only get 1 year at the beginning. So even the so-called cost of living, if you are, I did this fellowship last year. You see the kind of resources that are just present. But talking about childcare, not so that they will give you their own childcare is very comprehensive, but they will give you childcare. I think they give you like $10,000 to provide childcare for your child or your spouse. So there's a relation between how prestigious a school runs and the kind of resources that they can give you. I came from Wisconsin, which is very close to Cornell at many level. But like I think Jen was saying, that's extra $3,000 or so that Cornell pays. Yes, Cornell is in New York, so it's more expensive, but actually able to save more. They're able to keep more down after paying, so going to your expenses. So having studied at public university and Ivy, I will approach it in this level. It's almost like a secret. The way I let it out to other people is like, there's a reason why these people are Ivy Leagues. There's a lot of money. You can grab your own pie. Shama is here. All of you are talking about the health insurance. Cornell student health insurance is better than faculty health insurance. That tells you a lot. Get into
Okay.
So I mean, we can talk about the problem with that class system, but it exists, right? And it's true. They always throw money at us here randomly. That is outside our stipend, right? And like for instance, my laptop broke. I went to the department and they bought me a laptop. So you have things like, and you also have healthcare for your dependents and all that. So it's true. But what you're saying is,
I didn't come here because I like America. I came here because I didn't know before. So people might not really know. When I tell people like to aim higher, it's almost an economic decision. If even I have a friend that is at UPenn. They are paying so well, even ahead of Cornell, and they are still giving him free housing. How can you even think about that?
Yeah, I agree with what you both said. Great money, of course. There's a reason why Ivy Leagues are Ivy Leagues. They have money, but you see, the challenge I have is access, and that's usually the problem when it comes to classism. How many people will have access to these programs, right? They are highly competitive programs. But you see, what I do know with my experience writing and teaching is that in creative writing, going to a prestigious writing program doesn't make you a better writer. That is what I know. I know for sure.
I can certainly know. So I try and nuance it because I know someone who is doing PhD at MFA in creative writing and he's teaching 2-2. So you don't have the time to write because he's teaching 2-2 of 52 classes.
And having time to write has nothing to do with the quality of your writing.
You need time to even be able to write.
You wanted to say something, Jane.
Yeah,
That's not what you are saying. I see the sense.
I was saying yes. Oh, absolutely. Like for me, the PhD was time, and to have time, I also need money, to get by. So like after talking to students here, and I saw that there are so many other ways to get money outside of the stipend. Also part of my decision as well when I was making a decision.
So my own advice is that you should make your options. Don't restrict yourself to these schools. There are a lot of good programs in this country, in the US that are very good. Maybe they don't have as much money as the Ivy Leagues of this world, but there are a lot of good programs because at the end of the day, what you are trying to do is you are trying to grow as a writer and grow in your career. And I'm not going to be the one that will say, oh, going to an Ivy League school doesn't have its, benefits. Of course, the world and the systems, they they revolve around these things. We know that, but are we going to contribute that idea of classism, or are we going to dismantle it? That's the question.
Flipping the question another way to be like, are we going to leave these spaces for white people alone? Are we going to start stepping into those spaces?
Well,
Oh,
yeah, critic indeed.
for someone like me to mention in the first place is like, it doesn't even occur to me that I could go to Harvard. Like, I have spent time like mentoring people a lot, do like a lot of that. At least few people come to the US every year through me. The kind of blindness that I didn't even try. You know how you feel like you're coming from Nigeria, so you shouldn't even apply to this place. If you are coming to approach it from the way that Samuel is doing, which is ideological, I appreciate that because you know that you don't want to do this. Do you see the difference in what I'm saying?
The fact that you can get into anywhere I want to.
Exactly. But what I see with our people most of the time is that, at least happens to me. Even Cornell, to be honest, I didn't believe that I could get into Cornell. They're already shooting yourself in the leg of like, oh, it's Yale, I can't. No, you can if you want to. It depends on whether you want to do it. Like I say,
So let me just chip in. For example, I was a fellow at the International Writing Program, University of Iowa. And part of the things we do was to work with students from the Iowa Writers Workshop. And if you were to advise me, should you apply to the Iowa MFA, I would say no, don't. That's just me. There are other programs that will even benefit you more. So anyway, don't worry. Forget it's my own bias. Just forget I said all this.
We will. Okay, thank you. Any more questions?
He has a question on the chat.
Okay. Let's hold on.
Can read it out. It's here. Is grueling work being a literary scholar? What keeps you going? How do you stay in touch with the creative spirit while delivering as a scholar? So that's Adobe's question. Might as well just take it on since I'm talking.
Yes, please, my sister. Proceed.
Okay, so as a literary scholar, it's actually serious work. As Chijoke has said, I'm not sure I'm going to do it full time. I'm really interested in knowing how to do it, but I don't think it's something I want to do full time. What I want to do full time is be a writer, and I don't think there's anything that gives me more fulfillment than writing. And so I try the best I can to write, even if reviewing text can be very demanding. What I do as a practice is I try to get the stories for workshop ready before the semester starts. Because if I'm going to a fiction workshop, then I know that at least I'm going to produce 3 stories. I use the holidays to write those stories and then send them in during the workshop. So that is one work out of the way. I don't have to worry about producing anything creatively when I'm busy taking classes and learning new things. One of the classes we took here required us to write a novella. I started working on that. You know the classes you're going to take before the previous semester finishes. You write to the professors, please let me see what your syllabus is like or what is expected of me. Work on it during the holidays so that when you come into the class, it's easier. The books you need to read, some professors might even choose the books or tell you the books that they are likely to read during the literary course. Buy those books and read them before the semester starts so that when the semester starts, you're already maybe just revising or you don't even need to read them, especially if you're teaching. And another thing I do is that I try to divide my week. Maybe I tell myself Saturdays is when I do creative work. I don't want to hear anything about literary or this assignment. I really don't care. The work can stop at that time. I'm just going to do my creative work. So you find a way to divide your time, because if what you really love to do is write and you're not doing that, then everything else would suffer. The assignments will suffer, your criticism will suffer because you're not doing what you really love. So if you really want something, you have to make a way for it and not an excuse not to do it.
Thank you.
Okay. I can talk as well. Yeah, I found residencies to be quite useful. So I always apply to residencies for the summer because I know that during the semester I don't get as much writing as I would like. I found them very useful, especially because you're like in this very different place and all you have before you is your work and you're surrounded by people who are also there to create work. So yeah, that has helped me like keep with my projects. And I've actually done more writing in my PhD than I have my MFA, which is ironic because I'm way busier now. But I don't look at schoolwork during the holidays at all. I don't even try to read the books. I 100% give it to writing. And then during the semester, like I said, I also have days where it's just writing that I do. Not as many days as I would like. Depending on how I feel, sometimes I wake up 4 a.m., 5 a.m., write for an hour every day. But it doesn't always happen. Sometimes you're just not in the headspace. So it's just finding things that work for you. Community as well. Community has gotten me a long way. Like having accountability partners and like constantly talking to my colleagues about writing also helps like put me in this space. But again, it depends. Like for me, I don't know you guys, but it depends on each project and where my headspace is. I don't work the same way from day to day. So
Thank you.
I think the way, again, my pathway is different. For me, there are two ways I approach it. So, first of all, it's a career path that I have chosen for myself. And it's something that I want to. I don't like research, but I love teaching. Teaching is like what brought me here. Fortunately, you often can't separate them in most cases. So I just keep my eye on the part that gives me joy and why I'm here. Then, and that's why I'm here is also linked to like why you are here in the first place. It could be because of our circumstances back at home or personal. I just remind myself of very tough days of like why I'm doing this. And then I also try to look back when the days are really, really very bad. I think we haven't really thought about like the kind of imposter syndrome that we go through here. Like you really sometimes feel as if you don't know anything. It might look self-serving, but just print your CV and go through it again. You are the same person that have achieved all those things. At the same person that have published in all those places. At the same person that have won all those awards. And just remind yourself that that same person certainly not getting worse, but is getting better. Because the thing about PhD is that it can also kill you in a way that is just you just become like a robot. You are moving, your empathy or your feeling is gone. It's they're just playing you around. So whatever self-care means for you is what I just bring in that will keep me going. I'm also someone that preaches gratitude. It's like you ask for this opportunity, and if you're a Christian, God gave it to you. It could be worse, you could be in a worse program, it could be in a program that doesn't pay you. Honestly, like I said, I help people in mentorship. One of my mentees last year got a scholarship, a school that pays him $7,000 per annum. I don't know how he pays rent. $7,000 in an entire year. So even financially, like I said, it could really, really be worse. So you are better off than many people. So just remembering all those positive sides really helps. And hearing other people's stories as well. You might think your own is worse. Like when Samuel was talking about his own computer exam, everybody might be like, "Oh my God!" Once you hear that I'm recovering almost 14 months after from even my own. So just reminding yourself that it's still you who have done so many amazing things. Finally, you are not University of Houston or USC or wherever you are by accident. You want to be that place. In fact, by research statistics, Black people always end up in a place where they are overqualified to be. So you undervalued yourself. Wherever you are, statistically in the US, you can go a step higher than where you are just because of the whole historical thing. So you are really merited to be where you are meant to be. You are not underselling yourself. So reminding yourself of all those things, it really, really helps. I know it's easier said than done, but when I'm really, really very down, those are the ways that I try to bring myself up.
Yeah, that's very useful. For me, what I tell people, especially students here, is understand your process. And so you have to know what works for you and kind of follow through and, do what works for you. For me, what saw me through was I have this very strange habit. I think, Jane, you mentioned something like that. I wake up 3 a.m. every day to write. From 3 to 7, that's when I write. Of course, now that I'm getting older, I'm trying to stop that. I'm not as young as I used to be. I'm not that old. But you see, that was kind of my writing time. And no matter what, so even if I'm going to do any kind of PhD related work, I'll do that can come later, but I have that. But you see, the thing about writing fiction, I tell my students here is that we sometimes underestimate the things that we can do in our head, in our minds, even before we put anything on the page. You can do part of your work in your mind, and you don't need to sit down and block off a space to do that. So you're on the gym thinking about a story, going to the grocery store thinking about the story. You might be a little bit absent-minded, but good, that's okay. You're thinking about that. You have your phone where you can write something. You write a sentence here, a sentence there, one paragraph. So with that, you keep collecting your thoughts and bringing things together, and then you process it into fiction. So there are things you can actually do that you can steal time. I call it stealing time here and there. There are people who say, oh, you have to write every day. No, you don't have to write every day. But consistency is key. Well, what does consistency look like for you? And are you putting in your best? Yeah, all those things are things you should know. And like Chigoke said, you need to be grateful for where you are. There are times when you will feel very down and depressed and everything. This country is there's a lot of, how can I put it? People kind of retreat into their silos, and it can be very, very lonely for an immigrant. That's the truth. But understand that you are here for a reason, and know that you are trying to build a future. You are trying to do the things you love, and you are making all the necessary sacrifices for it. And the flip side of it is that find a community. That's very important. Find a community of people that you can just drop everything and go to and go hang out with and just sit down and watch Nollywood or whatever you watch or laugh or do whatever you need to do. Find a place where you can decompress. That's very important because you need to decompress because you have a long journey. PhD is like, if you have 5 years, you have a long way to go. So learn to decompress. It's important. A community of people, whatever that looks like to you, and have fun.
Thank you. To that, Choma, just very quick.
Yes, please.
Something that Chijuke said really touched me when he said, you go and print your CV and look at it. I totally relate. Even if I've not printed CV before, I'm going to keep that in mind. There are some comments. Last semester, the professor said something very untoward about my work. And I didn't know, because sometimes you're working so hard and trying to do so many things, you don't know that you're drained. You don't just know, you're just moving. And when he said that, made that comment, it touched me in a way that ordinarily a comment should not touch me. Normally, I'm just like, honestly, it's your opinion. Your opinion is your business. I really don't care. I'm not going to put my nose in your... That was when I knew that I had not paid enough attention to my mental health in a long time. And what I did was I sat down and I told myself, is it me? Is it me that they just said this thing to? Is it me? Like I couldn't believe it. And instead of printing CV, because it didn't even occur to me, I just went to Google and I typed my name. And then I looked and I saw my face. I said, is it me? I kept asking, is it me that they said this thing to? And finally enough, looking at what I've achieved so far, looking at how much I've been published so far, sort of told me, you're not that. You're trying. Like, it sort of reminded me, you've come a long way. Where you are now is where you really prayed to be for. There's a time I've not published anything. I prayed and prayed. I'm like, God, even if it's one publication, I will rest. You've gotten there and you don't know you've gotten there, but sometimes reminding yourself. I know people would see it as if you're being proud. I don't care. If I did the work to get here, then reminding myself that I worked hard to get here. I don't think there's anything wrong with it because it lifts you up in a different way. And especially at a course where you're not doing creative writing, as Samuel said, sometimes you can't even write. Sometimes you sit down and it's not working. sometimes reminding yourself that I wrote this one before, I wrote that one before, I can write again is there. And another thing you should do is not to think about it. I know that it sounds as if it's difficult. PhD is not easy, true, because it's the highest degree you can get in any university. It's not easy, but it's doable. And I tell myself, if people have done it, if somebody, as a human being with one head, has done it, even if it's hard, I can do it, provided a human being has done it. If that is only angels that have done it, then I will not try. And I try not to think about it because thinking is always the hard part in anything. I just say, okay, what am I supposed to do today? Go and teach. I go and teach and come back. Tomorrow, what am I supposed to do? One day at a time, one chunk of the elephant at a time. Before you know it, you're done eating the shoe early. All right.
So another thing I want to do, let me just, as a final thing for me, is that I don't know how you don't understand that Nigerians, we are the best everywhere we go. I'm serious. There's something about us. There's something about us that is unique. There's something about us. So don't take your Nigerianness everywhere you go. We was talking about negritude, about the fact that how is it? Critics, Senghor, yeah. Go everywhere, especially in this country, with that awareness. You are smarter than them. That's the truth. You are smarter than them. So, especially as a Black person, and that is how I've carried myself all through. You don't have to be proud. You don't have to. This has a lot to do with your self-esteem and with what you carry and with the things you've gone through as a Nigerian and with the way life has prepared you for this moment. Life has prepared you so much for this moment. You are prepared to meet the moment. So that's how I see it. So even as a professor, the way my colleague sees me is different because they know. So when some white dude try to look down on you, you're like, where do you think you are coming from? I'm in Nigeria. You know, the fact that we have the resilience, the spirit of our resilience, our fighting spirit, our creativity, all those things are very important. They are important things that will help you to survive in this country. A lot of people, you know, one of the things I've realized is how quickly people give up here. They just say, hey, I'm not doing this program again. They'll fuck off. Or they'll say, Kiniko, this job, I'm not even doing this job again. You have the luxury to do that. We don't. Also, you are going to go back to your village and tell people that you left or your parents that you dropped out. For what? So again, the spirit of being a Nigerian. Whenever I see Nigerians here in this country doing amazing things, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. There are Nigerians that look up to me here on campus and then they come to me and I tell them the same thing. I said, you're a Nigerian, come on. Get it together.
I'll keep telling myself that whenever things get really hard. Adobe, I hope we answered your question very well. Okay, thank you. So, Ella, I guess we can round off since there are no other questions left.
We have one more question. Yeah. In the comment. And the person who's directing the question to Chijioke.
Okay, Chijioke, I think this is for you.
Yeah, I think I see the question from Elizabeth. To clarify more on what I mean by like teaching is like what brought me here. Okay, this is how I will just say it, how I normally say it is assuming that we remove all the hierarchy and remove all the, okay, let me say it in a very simple way. Assuming that high school, secondary school pays very well. It's a career that you can look forward to. I would rather be in a secondary school than be in a university. So that is how I normally say. And I taught in secondary school for 3 years. I can't teach the junior, but I teach the higher level, like SS1 to SS3. I taught literature for 3 years. I would rather be in a secondary school than a university. So what that tells me that what I enjoy is the teaching side of academia, not the research side of academia. Secondary school is where you do that exclusive teaching with no research. University, they have to go hand in hand. And the research it runs me mad. Ironically, I have achieved some level of success in research that people don't believe me again when I say it. So maybe it doesn't mean I can't do it or that I enjoy it. Maybe it's just meant to be hard. Teaching I'm a very organic teacher. I don't want to prepare for class. Like, in fact, if I prepare too much, my class is bad. My class is better when I'm spontaneous. That's what I mean by teaching is what brought me here. The part that I enjoy doing more often.
Okay, thank you, Chijioke. Taga, did you want to ask another question or can we round off? Because we're running out of time.
Yes, so Elizabeth reached out to me with a question. She was asking about how the parents here manage the kids while expressing the rigors of the PhD program, because she's very well known to me and she has a child. Maybe she's not around now. So if you can please speak to any of you who have the experience and speak to the question.
CJ.
Yeah. That should be another webinar completely. I don't know. I have a 2-year-old, 2.5. She'll be 3 in November. I don't think I have really found myself since that girl was born. My whole life has changed. You can't just wake up and go and write anytime you want to go and write. Being married was different, but now a child came into it because we're married for like 2 years before having a child. I don't know if I can really answer that. I think the thing is just like, maybe this is actually where we need customer advice of like 1 day at a time. That is the life of a PhD student with the parents. I don't think there's any formula. I don't think there is, especially in this system where the child is, it's almost like you are fighting between keeping a child and the government taking the child away from you. Or at least the government watching over your family if they would want to intervene. I take my child to daycare and they're examining to see whether she brushed at home today or whether she did not brush. It's the only kind of parent that you are. And then how much is childcare? At Cornell here, a full month of childcare is $2,990. So can you even afford to even put a child in child? See. Yeah, Kazima, please, you say it better one day at a time. That is the only thing I can say. When the child entered the equation, it's a different question entirely. I don't think I have put it out. If somebody has, I think I'm still begging for answer. And I have just one. God help me.
Thank you. Samuel, over to you.
Why are you assuming that I'm a parent? You are making a lot of assumptions here. Yeah, it can be very challenging. Especially as a single parent, is even worse because it's one thing to do something, to do it alone. The advice I would give is try to get support system for yourself. For a Christian, get a church family and people, if you belong to a support group, also forge strong bonds and friendships with people, because those are the ones that will end up helping you, the ones that will come pick up your kid and take care of them, that will help you. One of the things we have in Nigeria that we lack here is a sense of community. Imagine doing a PhD in Nigeria, in a country where everything is okay, and the PhD programs, and an auntie, they will send an auntie somewhere, or a sister or a cousin will come and take care of your child. That's how we are. Or someone will just lend a helping hand of that. So, but you don't have that here. So you have to rely on all this, what's it called? Official, actually pay for childcare and all of that. But there's a way in which you can create your own community in that sense. Make friends with all the Africans around you. Africans still understand. There are some Americans that do get it. Form that. Don't do that because one day you are saying, oh, maybe they will help me. Do that from the bottom of your heart. Gather them together one day and say, let's have dinner. Come have dinner in my house. Be a part of their own joy. Be a part of their own process, their own lives too, and all of that. And you see, there are times when they'll say, oh, make friends with your children. So that, one day they'll say, oh, we are going on a play date. The two of them will go. Someone will supervise them. You have time. That's time for you to do what you need. So finding your own community, you're allowing the community to grow organically. And then I think it will go a long way, because that is what immigrants often lack outside the country.
Thank you so much. That was a very comprehensive answer. So I'm going to speak from a personal standpoint. I just graduated from the MFA program, and been a lecturer at Cornell. This is my second year as a lecturer. And when I came to the US, I came with 3 grown children, grown in quotes, because they were of school age. And so, it was easy to just send them off to school in the morning. They'll take the school bus and I would go to school and try and come back after school around the time that they come back. Sometimes, if I have to do more work in the library, my husband would be at home to sort of like help. He cooks well, so that's a different. But that's how we manage so far. So if you have a supportive spouse, that can be helpful. Like Samuel said, if you're a single parent, my God, I don't know. It might be difficult, but you can, if they're of school age, you can actually sort of like plan. I know I had a classmate whose wife had a baby while he was in his final year and he really struggled. But what he did was he told the program, see, my wife just had a baby. I can't afford to teach in the mornings. Give me a night class. Because then he knew he would have like his wife around to take care of the kids. You can actually schedule your classes around the time when your kids would be in school and choose lectures that are around that time and then go home to handle childcare. It's usually hard, but I think basically people find ways around it, but you won't know until you get here. Challenges you didn't expect to come up, and some challenges you expected to come up will not, you just wing it. I don't think, it will be hard. Sometimes, like in Cornell, for instance, the school actually has a grant that's called the Parent-Student Grant. The money isn't so much, but at least it will help you take care of a couple of things. If you have to pay for childcare, if you have to pay for some things, that student parent grant was, very helpful to me. Like my own time. I don't have access to that because I'm no longer a student, and I'm like, oh my God, I feel like I'm in poverty.
Yeah, I was going to add to that. In your respective, in the States, wherever you are, there are some grants and money like that people don't really pay attention to. That they are there for parents, for single parents. Find out if there's something. And also, don't be afraid to ask for help. The worst people can say is no to you. Ask. Don't close your mouth because you don't know. That's one of the things I learned in life. And if I need something, I'll just ask.
Yeah.
And you can say no to me, fine, I'll go ask someone else. So please ask. Make sure you are asking around, what are the resources available to me? What's going on? What can I do? How can I do this? Also ask who have kids, who are like colleagues or gone ahead of you. How did you manage? Which daycare did you send your school? There are some, if you're in a university system, for example, there are some students that do internship, they study, they do childcare. They are students because it's part of their job. They will come and take care of your kid. Many people don't know that. It's because it's part of their job. They will come and take care of the, and you pay them like maybe, I don't know, $10 or so per week or something, or $30 or something. But you won't know all those things if you don't ask questions. That's very important. There are resources around you where you are right there that you can use.
Yeah, thank you so much, Samuel. I was going to say it's not enough to just ask. You have to ask the right people. And you can ask American parents, but also know that they have support systems that you don't have. So it's important to ask parents who are also immigrants. I think it's very helpful.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. So I guess that's it for today. Anna.
Yes, that's it. Thank you very much, Samuel. Thank you, Kazi. Thank you, Jane. Thank you, Chijoko. This was very, very helpful. And I'm pretty sure the people who missed today would benefit a lot from the recording when we put it up on the website. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much. Pleasure doing this with you.
Thank you. Bye.